Check for two, check. Let's fix that bottom a little bit.
Check, 1, 2.
Yep. Checking the mic, 1, 2. Oh, there we go. Oh, that works, huh? That was a great ceremony, everybody, huh? Yeah! Maybe someday Dan's actually going to tell us what he said. Thank you for being here. When Dan first asked us to give us a speech, for us to give a speech at his wedding, we initially thought, are you sure that's a good idea? But right after that, we were very honored. On one of the biggest days of his life, Dan chose us to introduce him to his new family. Entrusted with this important task, we did what anyone in our generation would do. We put it off until the night before, and then we Googled it. So, we found this guide online about how to give a wedding speech step by step. Step 1. Cut a hole in the box. Step We now present to you how to give a wedding speech, a perfectly adequate one, in 11 easy steps. Step 1. Introduce yourself. Hi, I'm Ryan. I'm Dan's sensitive, good-looking groomsman. Hi, I'm Whitney. I'm the other one. Step 2. Break the ice with a joke. Hey, Dan, you know the first time you gave Cassie a ring? What do you call that? It's a proposal. You know, you got married, you did it. You should probably know that. Cassie, what would you call it if you got a ring for Dan?
Wedding ring?
A good trade. Step 3. Open by thanking those who made the day possible and end with saying thank you to all of those who have made it here today. I got this one. Thank you to those of you who made this day possible. And thank you to everyone who made it here today. Step 4. Comment on how beautiful the bride looks. Cassie, you look absolutely radiant. Dan, you look pretty too. Step 5. Transition to your speech. The real reason we are here is to celebrate Dan and Cassie. Step 5B. High five the other groomsmen. I just made that one up. Step 6. Talk about how you know the groom. We both met Dan at the University of Rochester. We were in a fraternity together. Sigma Nu? Please. Our fraternity, hold your pause. Our fraternity was exactly like the ones you see in the movies. Specifically, Revenge of the Nerds. But due to Dan's leadership and dedication, he was twice honored as Man of the Year. You have to keep in mind, though, that we were his competition right here. So. Step 7. Talk about some of the positive qualities of the groom. Step 8. Tell amusing anecdotes about the groom. Well, when we first met Dan, he was tall, goofy, and kind of awkward, but a lot has changed. For example, Dan now has a beard. Dan's really moving up in the business world. He works for an aerial imaging company. Pictures from the sky like a super high-definition version of Google Maps. And Dan recently got promoted. Yeah, the satellites were getting expensive, so now they just hand Dan a camera and have him go like this. Dan was my roommate freshman year. Now, I can only assume we were paired together because on his roommate preference form, he selected non-smoking and Jewish. So that first day when I met Dan, I could have never imagined that I would be standing here at his wedding, giving a speech. And probably neither could he. But that is until we went to buy cinder blocks to raise our bed. When we decided to do this, we took the bus to where else? Wegmans. From the parking lot of Wegmans, we spot a Lowe's. It's about 3/4 of a mile down the road, and it's across a busy 6-lane highway. So we walk over to Lowe's and we buy the cinder blocks. Now it's 90 degrees outside, and we're both carrying 60+ pounds of cement. And now we have to dodge in and out of oncoming traffic on our way back. Our shirts, they're soaked with sweat. We almost got hit by a car multiple times, and our hands, They were cut up and literally bleeding. That's when Dan and I glanced back at each other, and we realized that the store next to Wegmans is a Chase Pitkin. It's a hardware store. They sell cinder blocks. At that moment, Dan and I, we looked at each other, and we recognized we have something very important in common. We are both idiots. That was about 10 years ago, and Dan, you've been one of my best friends ever since. There's more.
In the time that I've known Dan, we've been on many road trips together. And let me tell you, he is absolutely awful with directions. So this one time he comes down to Buffalo to visit me for the weekend. And as he's on his way to head back out, heading up to Rochester, I realize, oh no, I gotta give this guy directions. So I give him these detailed step-by-step instructions, and I even draw him a map. Then I see him go the wrong way out of my driveway. So I call him up, he turns around, and I see him turn the wrong way at the end of my street. To make a long story short, I have to escort him all the way to the thruway so he doesn't get lost. But when you think about Dan's sense of direction, it's really a metaphor for the way he lives his life. He usually doesn't get to where he was planning to go, but he always winds up in the place that's right for him.
Step 9. Pivot to endearing stories about the couple.
Cassie, we know living with Dan can't always be easy. He has a lot of commitments to his job and to his other special someone. I'm talking, of course, about his dog, Remy. So, admittedly, he's big, goofy, and smells terrible.
But Ryan, Remy doesn't care. He loves Dan anyway.
In all seriousness, Dan, you've trained two very nice dogs, Remy and Wrigley. And I know you guys might not be thinking about this yet, but when you have kids, if the way you raise your dogs is any indication, they'll be well loved and cared for. But even before you guys shared the bond of dog ownership, it was easy for Cassie to tell that Dan was marriage material. Shortly after they started dating, Cassie asked Dan if they were officially a couple yet, and he replied, I don't know, I guess.
But how quickly things change. Fast forward just 1 year.
So now, many of you might know the story of when Dan and Cassie first got engaged. Dan prepared a gourmet dinner, bottle of champagne on ice waiting for them, warm, soft candlelight, and Barry White serenading them in the background.
Oh yeah, now.
So in the midst of this perfect evening, there it is. So in the midst of this perfect evening, Dan gets down on one knee, and he gently places his hand on hers.
Who loves you, baby?
He looks up lovingly into her eyes, and he reaches sensually into his pocket and pulls out a crumpled, reused Ziploc bag.
Ladies love Ziploc bags.
Now, Dan could have put the ring in a cheap box from a craft store. He could have even gone to a jewelry store to get a box of the ring. But Dan didn't do this. Why?
Because ladies love Ziploc bags.
Well, that too, but because inside of that crumpled, possibly used Ziploc bag was a ring that belonged to Cassie's grandma. And it was the ring that Cassie wanted. Ladies and gentlemen, we're all here today because Cassie knows that whether it's a Ziploc bag or the man you love, it's what's inside that counts.
Step 10. Close by wishing the new couple well.
Cassie, since the first time we met you, you've always been nice to us. Now it's official. I'm glad Dan has found someone who can bring him back to earth once in a while. You've always welcomed us into your home, and I know you and Dan are a great couple, because I'd marry either of you.
Dan, I know I can speak for all of the groomsmen when I say that despite everything we just said, we are lucky to be able to call you a friend. You have always been there for us whenever we have needed you, and I can say that without you, I wouldn't even know most of the people who I now consider my closest friends. We're gonna miss you when you move. We really will, but you've found a great partner in life, and we couldn't be happier for you.
Step 11, raise your glass and ask everyone to join in a toast to the happy couple. Please join us and our fellow groomsmen in a 162 syllable toast to Dan and Cassie.
Family and friends, both near and far, by bus, by train, by plane, by car, have traveled here, as you can tell, on this, your day, to wish you well.
Boyfriend, girlfriend, now man and wife, we all rejoice in your new life. Just him, just her, that chapter's done. Your lives were two, now only one.
If you don't know, you'll find out soon that not all life's a honeymoon. But take some time, no matter where, it's just to say how much you care.
As years go by and you grow old, remember when your love took hold. When times are dark, never forget, the love you give's the love you'll get.
And so, enough with words, make glasses clink. We're almost done, we soon will drink. So pour some wine and raise your glass, 'cause here's a toast to Dan and Cass. To Dan and Cass, everyone.